Hey guys, hope you're well. As you can see, I am not in California and don't really have a really good excuse for not coming out to LA other than two other trials I was wanted to attend to. They got dismissed, so it's kind of pointless to come out to LA just for one hearing. Now, I would certainly come up to LA even if with Scientology involved if for an entire trial, but this is, remember, there's no trial going on. All of this was a hearing of probable cause to see if DOA will have, if there's enough on DOA to go forward, and is the DA legitimate enough in bringing these charges. So I didn't go, but I got some sources. My sincere apologies. I came close to going, but dropped off the dog late and showed up at the airport maybe 40 minutes before my flight. So I'm here in Newark. I decided just to chill in Newark. So don't really have a good excuse. But there wasn't a lot to talk about because everybody thinks there's so much going on in these early hearings, and there really isn't that much. What I will say is you have to analyze this objectively. DOA got some decent news, and at least as of this moment, of course, he is his own worst enemy, so he might mess it up. But DOA has the momentum as of this moment. Well, we're looking at what was supposed to happen on the 4th were something that was realistic and something that a lot of the detractors were hoping and perhaps, and I think deservedly, should have happened. A thing that there was hope that would happen, but that didn't happen, is they were hoping that DOA's bail would be revoked, that he created these violations in which, I got that wrong. Becky, DOA is allowed to talk about Becky, so I got that wrong in the video. But if Tanya or Rib Guy are mentioned via stream, which DOA already did, or if any of his followers do the same on their own stream, then that is a bail violation. And the judge could have done something with that information, chose not to do so. And it looks like that if DOA didn't get his bail revoked today, it's very, very unlikely he will get his bail revoked. So I think the chances of him ending up in prison are before an actual ruling in the court by the jury is probably 10%. It's incredibly unlikely. This was the opportunity, if there ever really was an opportunity, this is the opportunity to try to get the bail revoked. That did not work. And again, Los Angeles is very progressive, and so they're going to apply the same rules to DOA as they do to other people before the court, which is to go very lenient and really have a high standard to truly revoke somebody's bail. So DOA got a success in that regard. And the other success that he got is most of his felony charges may very likely be thrown out. So we were looking at two things. We were looking at felony vandalism with an enhancement which adds quite a few more years of a hate crime. So felony vandalism assault with a hate crime enhancement, as well as, in terms with Motley Crue, assault with a deadly weapon. The judge did rule, as far as I can tell, I'm pretty positive about this, the judge did rule that there was enough there to formally go ahead with the evidence, with the charge of assault with a deadly weapon. So that was successful. So I do say there's momentum, but there was some lack of momentum as well, because I'm sure DOA, and he's been saying this on his stream for quite some time, and he even indicated that he would try to get his attorney to get all the charges thrown out. All the charges did not get thrown out. In fact, nothing has gotten thrown out. But if there was a hope, again, this would have been the same moment that he could have gotten his bail revoked, also could have been the same moment where if it was all, according to the judge, unfounded, that the judge would have thrown out every single one of the charges. He did grant permission for the felony assault charge to continue. Now, the judge has to decide, in which he will do on this Friday. The judge will have to decide, is there enough to go forward with felony vandalism with a hate crime enhancement? And this is an example of why Scientology could oftentimes be their own worst enemy, because Scientology, they could have just tried to get DOA or the DA, and working with Scientology, they could have tried to get DOA simply on felony vandalism, and there might have been enough there. With the hate crime enhancement, that is much tougher to prove, and it is also much tougher for a judge to even grant permission or credibility for that charge to go forward. Making things worse for the prosecutors is that if the judge doesn't feel like there's a hate crime enhancement to be justified, instead of the judge saying, okay, fine, we will just go forward with a felony vandalism charge, because the hate crime was added, it's very unlikely that the judge will do that. The judge would order, if he doesn't find credibility in the hate crime enhancement, the judge will order the DA to say, sorry, you have to go back, recharge the guy, start from the very, 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 very beginning. You have to go from scratch. Now, there is a chance that the judge could simply say, fine, there's no hate crime here, but we could continue with the felony assault, but it is very unlikely because, understandably, if you're the defendant and you're the attorney and you thought you were looking at a charge and all of a sudden the charge gets changed midway through, and this is different than a plea deal. That's a completely different conversation because the plea deal is after the judge has granted legitimacy for the charges to be debated in a court of law, right? So it's different. So that's the thing. So it would have been a lot easier, perhaps, to prove enough credibility for the charge to go forward on felony vandalism, but because it's much tougher to pinpoint anything on a hate crime, the entire felony vandalism charge may very well get thrown out. Again, if Scientology simply went for felony vandalism in the first place without pretending hate crime existed, they would have a much better shot at not having these charges dropped, or the judge not dismissing these charges outright entirely. So it's another example of how Scientology has this constant habit of shooting themselves in the foot and making their cases much more difficult than it needs to be. So you really see a battle of incompetence here. You really see a battle of two groups who just can't help but throw up on themselves, and that's DOA and Scientology. It's a comedy of errors in terms of the most incompetent, idiotic people ever to be forth in a courtroom, in my opinion. It's kind of quite hilarious. You just have two groups of idiots seeing how could they out-idiot each other. But that's the rub. I don't think that, I'm glad I didn't go because I didn't really miss a lot. And keep in mind, a lot of the interactions are private and are in conversations with the district attorney and the judge. I will say another thing that's in the lawyer as well. And so you don't get to hear that just witnessing it. I will say that the DA appeared to have presented the judge a video, I don't know of what, but perhaps the judge has that in his back pocket. And here's the thing. I do say if he's unlikely to get his bail revoked because it hasn't happened, it still could happen. So it's not like there's an impossibility. And here's the thing. After everything that's existed now, it looks like DOA is in the clear. It looks like he will not get his bail revoked. And the judge was able to look at the evidence of what exists in the here and now, or at least what exists as of the moment before the commencement of DOA's hearing. That wasn't enough, and based on that, it's doubtful anything new will happen to revoke his bail, right? The judge found all that. It's not like in a week he'll necessarily change his mind and feel like, all right, I've had time to sit on this, and now he needs his bail revoked. But the judge has given him warnings that he's on very thin ice. So if DOA yet again revokes his bail, I think it would be, yet again violates the terms of his bail, I think it's quite likely that he'll get his bail revoked. And knowing DOA, he is his own worst enemy. So I see that as a 50% chance of happening, quite frankly, because he just can't, again, help but throw up on himself and attack and agonize. The other thing that I did see is the clip of Josiah being quite antagonistic towards Becky. And to Becky's credit, she didn't really start it at all. So that might, if people are looking for bail violations, that might be helpful, especially if Becky wants to present a general pattern of harassment. I believe she might have politely said hello to Josiah, if that, and deliberately tried to not continue contact with her. He decided to be very aggressive and continue contact with her, even though she did not try to continue contact with him. Here's the difference, though, and here's where I think Josiah going up to Becky doesn't matter. because Josiah did that in person and they were both in the same place. Remember, this is all streaming, so there's no restraining order or anything like that. So both of them were in the courthouse, and even though Josiah was the first person to get aggressive and hostile, and I think completely inappropriate with Becky and mean and unkind and scary, quite frankly. I'd be a little scared. I don't think because it was in person, because they were in the same location, because Josiah didn't really seek her out. He sought out to be aggressive, but it was more coincidence that they saw each other, and it was seeing each other in person. So I don't see that necessarily as a strong violation. But we'll see. We'll see if the judge on the 4th, I will not be there. It's just not worth going to, and I'm really trying to focus on other trials, and I'll cover the important Scientology trials, but a lot of the inside baseball stuff, you get a lot of hostility from both sides, and it's just part of it gets childish. Part of me thinks there are more important things happening in the world, so I'm certainly myself gravitating away towards the Scientology world, only because there's so much stuff you could cover. And I don't need to be there for every little single tiny development. And there's some other stuff that I feel passionate about, like Luigi Mangione trial I'm going to cover, and the Diddy sentencing, and a lot of stuff in the fall, and a lot of immigration cases. So I want to broaden my horizons. Scientology is getting a little boring, to be honest. It's important work. It's very important work, and these cases are important to cover. But I'm not going to stop covering them. But I'm just saying it's not going to be my main focus, and I'm not going to try to go out of my way to cover for every single little hearing as I used to do. That being said, 1,000% I will be there for Minty. That I want to be there for, because there's an actual back and forth, and when there's an actual back and forth, it's the trial equivalent in an RO hearing. That's worth going, because you get notes, you get some interesting information. So I'll 100% be there for Minty, and I have a flight from Buffalo, because I got to pick up my car. And Buffalo is a much more manageable, easy to get to airport. I had to drop off my dog in Poughkeepsie, and then get down to Newark via public transit. So that was a headache and a half. But Buffalo will be very easy. I'll be staying there for a few days. And I specifically forced myself to get taken to Buffalo, so I have to go there, and then I'll have to show up to the airport. So I kind of forced myself to do so. But I will be there with Minty. But, yeah, man, long story short, the California justice system is going to be quite lenient. And by that same line of conversation, don't expect ZDT to get his bail revoked and have him land in jail all of a sudden. There is a very, very long rope that the justice system gives you, and ZDT and DOA are taking full advantage of it. So really not a lot of new things, except for what will the big decision by the judge be on the 4th. It's going to be harder. It's going to be harder to grant credibility because of the felony assault is attached to a hate crime enhancement. It's going to be harder. I'd say more likely than not, the judge will throw that out. Obviously you're still looking at the misdemeanors, which is time, and you're still looking at the felony assault with a deadly weapon, particularly that it was a deadly weapon, makes it all worse. And hey, here's the nice part. I don't need to ask for money. And, I think I talked a little bit about Aaron's video. And I said it was cool that he got, I admire him in some way for getting arrested, but I said 3 times, only if you don't expect to get money from other people. So, the fact that Aaron's making quite a bit in his YouTube, I don't think he'd experience serious financial loss by expending his own money. So I call shenanigans on that. I think that's hypocritical, but I did a little interesting poll if you want to check that out. But I guess I'll report. I'm not going to be there for Friday for DOA, but I'll report, or an update, I suppose. And then I will have an in-person report with Minty. So I'll catch y'all later. Bye-bye.